morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, and we've got more Tag Team GXs that are winning. The rule with Tag Team GXs very much seems to be, they're all good. They're all going to be winning tournaments. And that's good, because now I get to show you a winning deck list for all the Tag Team GXs. Thing is, I've not shown you a winning deck list for Deoxys and Espeon Tag Team GX yet. Let me fix that. So if we remind ourselves about Deoxys and Espeon Tag Team GX, it actually came out as its own deck. And it's kind of a fun Pokemon, although I thought maybe slightly overpriced. So according to the lovely David Hochmann over at Rappelman TCG, the first attack for a Psychic Double Colorless does 10 damage plus 30 more for each of your bench Psychic Pokemon. So clearly the plan here is to try and fill your bench with Psychic Pokemon as quickly as you possibly can, so that you are hitting for 160 damage. Though I fear that might not always be enough, but a deck won, so we'll get there. And then the GX attack for 1 Psychic 2 Colorless Energy. Put 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like, but if you've got 3 extra energy on there, you put 20 damage counters instead. Cool. So look, it shouldn't surprise you at this stage. Well, there's 2 things that shouldn't surprise you. Firstly, this deck only plays Psychic Pokemon. We cannot afford to have non-Psychic Pokemon on the bench because they're taking away damage, so we don't play around with non-Psychic Pokemon. And secondly, when we start to look at other Pokemon in the deck, we start with Malamar. We have to start with Malamar. Malamar accelerates energy, and you need energy for fairly obvious reasons, so we play Malamar. And that's how it stops being a bit too expensive. And then the basic goal here is that you just hit 160 every single turn. You just constantly sit there smashing for 160, and you hope that it's enough. Now, if you need to do a little bit of extra damage, don't worry, because we've got Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX. And that, for 2 energy, 2 psychic energy, does 50 damage for each trainer card of any kind in your opponent's hand. Generally, this is what you can use to really smash for bigger damage, although the fact that it has a different weakness to Deoxys and Espeon is kind of a bonus. Though speaking of weakness, we do play Jirachi GX. And the reason we play Jirachi GX is very simple. It removes psychic weakness from all of your psychic weak Pokemon. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Jirachi because your opponent can just play Power Plant on their turn and then get a one-hit KO. But there are going to be times when they're not able to do so, and for that reason, I can see why you play it as a one-off, but I don't think it is central to your strategy. Now, we also play Latios GX here, only a one-off again. It's not the most important thing ever, but we're still playing Latios GX, it's still moderately important. And the ability says if you have 4 or fewer Pokemon in play, this Pokemon can't attack, which shouldn't be an issue because with Deoxys and Espeon you want a full bench every turn. And for 1 Psychic, 2 Colorless Energy, it does 120 damage. And during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's tag team Pokemon. Gives you immunity from Pikachu and Zekrom, Reshiram and Charizard, Garchomp and Giratina, probably the 3 best decks in Japan at the moment. And sure, your opponent can attack the bench and all of that, but this could buy you some time or get you some cheeky KOs against some really phenomenally good Pokemon. So again, you don't play it as a multiple, you don't build your deck around it, but you do pop it in there as a one-off, because sometimes you will be able to shut down attacks. Also, for 1 Psychic Energy, it stops your opponent using GX attacks, which can be kind of fun, but remember you've got to use your only GX attack and your attack for the turn to stop your opponent using their GX attacks, so it's not always there. Now, in terms of other Pokemon here, we have a couple of Tapu Lele to go and search out your supporters. We have a couple of Giratina. Now, Giratina's amazing here because when it's in the discard, you can put it straight onto the bench and put 1 damage counter onto each of 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. But it's just a really easy way to fill up the bench. So you need it so that you can easily fill up the bench for the extra damage. Couple of Marshadow. Now, Marshadow forces both players to get a new hand of 4 cards. It can be pretty disruptive, and in Malamar decks, once you've got a couple Malamar set up, you don't need a hand so much. You can generally play off the board better than a lot of decks can. But what's amazing here is that if you can get your opponent to a 4-card hand and stop them attacking for a couple turns, then the biggest issue I have with this, namely that 160 won't always be enough, doesn't matter anywhere near as much because your opponent's not able to take you down, so you just sit and hit for 160, and you're golden. We have 1 Mew to protect the bench, really important with Pikachu and Zekrom running around. And we've got 1 copy of Mimikyu. It can copy attacks. It's really quite nice for copying attacks. We like it. It's cool. Now, in terms of supporter cards here, we've got a couple of Cynthia and a couple of Lily. They are the best draw cards we've got. We also see a copy of Tate and Liza. It's a decent draw card, not as good as Cynthia, but it also works as a switch. And you need to get your Deoxys and Espeon in the active attacking every turn. Or you need to have them on the bench to accelerate energy with Malamar and then get them into the active. Either way, switching is something you're going to want to do moderately often. So having Tate and Liza is pretty good. Speaking of switching, we've got 3 copies of Guzma, either for switching or for dragging a Pokemon into the active. And we've got 1 copy of Ace Roller. I mean, look, you're playing Tag Team GXs. You need at least 1 copy of Ace Roller. Huge HP, but you give up free prizes. If you can drop this and essentially heal one of your Pokemon before it gets KO'd and you give up free prizes, that's a bonus. Now, the item line here is extremely thin. 4 Nest Ball to get your basics. Couple of Ultra Ball to search out most of your Pokemon. And 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure because you're only playing Psychic Pokemon. And Mysterious Treasure does what Ultra Ball does, except you only discard 1 card from hand rather than 2. There'll be the odd turn you want to discard a couple of Psychic Energy to accelerate, but generally discarding 1 is enough. Really here, you're only playing Ultra Ball because you're capped at playing 4 Mysterious Treasure. Free switch because I told you about the importance of switching a minute ago. With your Guzma and your Tate and Liza, that should be enough. And a couple of Choice Band because then that 160 becomes 190. And now all of a sudden, you're not getting everything, but you've got those Pokemon like Blacephalon, for instance, where you are able to get a 1-hit KO, which is kind of nice. Also, do remember that you're hitting weakness on Mew Mew, which could well be the best Pokemon in the format right now. And a couple of stadiums to finish off here. We've got Viridian Forest, which lets you search out your energy, while also letting you discard a card. Again, could be useful for Malamar. And 1 copy of Power Plant to turn off things like your opponent's Tapu Lele or your opponent's Dedenne. Need to be careful here because you do use GX abilities. So, yeah, that could be bad. Could be good, of course, because Latios, if you've got fewer than 4 Pokemon in play, this can actually turn off Latios' ability and allow you to attack. So this could actually turn up quite handy. I'm still not 100% convinced when it comes to Deoxys and Espeon. I think it's a good card. I think with Malamar, you're all right. But I do worry slightly that 160 every turn is just not going to be enough. But I would very much like to know what you think. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you check out youtube.com/WossiePlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. And starting this weekend, we're going to be talking Final Fantasy, just putting that out there. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.